Okay, so turn to page CA 154 in the back of your book and go ahead and try number 1. Try to write those as fractions, and again, you can write as a mixed number or just an improper fraction, but you don't have to simplify it. So just write it as one and then stop, and then we'll touch base. Okay, so again, to put these in, remember you just write it as a decimal fraction. So let's see if I can review. My stylus pen is not working, but we'll make the best of it. So this first one, we'd have 137. And we are in what place value? Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So we would have that. This one we would have what? 2, 5, 5, 6, 7. All over what place value? Tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. I think that's 100,000ths if I'm correct. If I'm wrong, you guys can fix it. All right, this one right here, I'm just going to go ahead and write it as an improper fraction. You could do a mixed number, but I don't know that there's any reason to. So let's see, we have tenths and hundredths. And this last one, same thing, I'll just do an improper fraction. So 3, 2, 9, 2, and that's in the tenths position. Oopsie, don't want to move what I'm recording over there. All right. And so I want you to look at all of these basically terminating decimals here when they're in fraction form and try to look for a pattern here. What do you notice about all of these denominators that must make it terminating? Okay. And then after you think about that, I want you to go ahead and you can use a calculator, but go ahead and divide these and see what happens with those and look for a pattern. All right, so pause it and go ahead and divide all these and see what you notice. Okay, so if you look at this next part, and hopefully this one you should just have memorized. So that's 0.1 repeating. And this one should go 0.01, 01, 01, 01, so that's 0.01. And you put a line over both because they both repeat. And then this one, you're kind of like, oh, noticing a pattern here. So then the next one must be that guy. Sorry, that's a 1. And then we could just keep going and going and going and so forth. So, and this should kind of make sense a little bit. If it's 1 over 10, it'd be 0.1 repeating. So there's always that kind of remainder of 1, bring down a 10, bring down a 10 when you divide. So if you did long division, you could kind of see that. Remember the top number is what's inside, and then there's your 9. So if you put a decimal here, it goes in there once, but notice your remainder is always going to be 1. So then when you bring down a 0, you're always going to get 10, so you're always going to have that 1 left over and over and over again. So that one should be kind of logical. Let me get back to my eraser here, maybe. And so you can kind of see why there's always going to be like a 1 left over at some point in the process. So with tens, like 1/10 would be 0.1, 1 over 100 would be 100th, 1 over 1,000 would be 1,000th, and so forth. But these are just kind of not quite that, and then there's always that 01 left over, 01 left over, because this you'd have 100 minus 99, so you get 01 left over, 01 left over, 01 left over, and then this would be 1,000 minus 999, so then you'd have that 0.001 left over, and so forth. So you can kind of see why those make sense. All right, so hopefully you noticed something about these that kind of made them terminating. And so hopefully you're looking at some pattern here that's making these be repeating. All right, and we're going to go to the next page here. Okay, so go ahead and try to write these repeating decimals by using, kind of building the fractions you used on the previous page. So see if you can figure out how to build these going with what you know and see if that works. So again, 0.2 repeating, think about what fraction that might be that would give that to you. And unit fraction and unit decimals are huge here. And again, you can always check on a calculator if you're not 100% sure with what you're doing here. So again, try number 3, try number 4, try number 5, see how it goes, and I'll come back in a little bit. Okay, so let's start with this first one. 2.2 repeating is 2 sets of 0.1 repeating. So that should be 2/9, because 2 1/9, each 1/9 would give you the 0.1 repeating, and so we have 2 sets of them. So it kind of all goes back to unit fraction. So again, this should be 8. Here's tenths, hundredths, but it would be 1 shy of that from what we talked about earlier. This one would be 3, and then tenths, hundredths, thousandths, but again, it's 1 less than that. And this would be 52, and then again, tenths, hundredths, so that should be over 99. And again, if you're not sure those are going to work, you can check it. All right, so let's look at this one. This should be 1, 2, 3, 4. And if it was tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, it would be terminating, so 1 less than that. Did I say 10,000ths? So that should be there. And then this one should be what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not fun to write with a mouse here. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, 100,000ths, a millionth, so 1 less than that. And these are all supposed to be 9s. I apologize. Really wishing my tablet was working better. All right, so those are all 9s. All right, and again, if you're not sure, try that on your calculator and see. All right, so if you didn't get those, go ahead and try 4 and 5 again and see if you can figure it out now. Okay, so if we look at this next part, so this one, they give us this hint, but notice there's a 0 here that's not repeating. So it goes 49, 49, 49, 49, 49, but there's an extra 0 in there. So we don't want it over like 999. What we want is we want 49 over 990, because that 0 is going to give us that 1 place value. So if I look at that pattern, then I'm like, so this guy is probably going to need 2 zeros here before the repeating pattern happens. And this guy is going to need 3 zeros before the repeating pattern happens. And this one's going to need, what, 4 zeros? And again, if you're not sure, go ahead and take your calculator and take 49 divided by whichever one you want to check, and just see if that does what you want it to do. All right, so again, I'm going to pause one more time in case you're slowly figuring this out. Use this example to try to write these as fractions, and I'll come back one more time. Okay, so let's try this first one together here and see, and then again, I might have you try a few more. So again, you have 7, and then you have a 3, but that's 3/10. And then you have what we had up here, right, which is that 49, but the 0 part's not repeating, so it's over, what, 990. So if we're going to make a fraction here, we're going to need a common denominator. Oopsies, just a second here. I'm trying to get review here. Try to get a different pen color. So we're going to have to scale this up by what, 99 and 99 to get a equivalent fraction. So, and again, if you want to use a calculator for this, that's fine, but 99 times 3 is 297. So we have 7 as a whole number, and then we have 297. So it's not kind of as easy as maybe some of you thought, like that it's just a pattern. Repeating are nice as far as a pattern, but when you mix them together, not so much, because you have kind of something that's grouped by tens and something that's not, and that does not bode well. All right, so if you take your 297 plus your 49, you're going to end up with 346. So I have 7 and 346 over 990. And that would give me that repeating decimal. If I want it improper, then I'd have to take 7 times my 990, so 7 times 990. And then I'd have to add in my 346. And so if you wanted it that way, it's going to be 7,276 all over 990. And again, if you have a calculator and you want to double check it, you get 7.3 and then 494949. Now your computer might round it to the 5 or something like that. All right, so go ahead and let's see, why don't you try this next one? If that one you didn't figure out on your own, try this one and see how that goes. Okay, so on this one, I went ahead and separated it. You have 1/10, you have 2 hundredths, and then you have this repeating decimal part. So 1/10 as a decimal fraction in fraction form is 1/10. This is 2 hundredths, and then this is the 49, and again, you have those 2 zeros at the beginning, so instead of over 99, multiplied it by 100 to get that. So this right here is your common denominator. So this guy needs what, times 99? Both the numerator and the denominator. And this guy needs what, 990? All right. So go ahead and get the equivalent fractions and add them together, and I will come back in a second and we'll compare answers. Okay, so here's the rest of that process. Just scaled the top and the bottom to get an equivalent fraction, did the same here to get an equivalent fraction, did the same here to get an equivalent fraction. Well, I guess I didn't have to do anything there. And then just added your numerators, and you have your common unit, which is your denominator, which again, it doesn't look very good, but it is 9,900. And again, if you double check and divide this, then the 1 is not repeating, the 2 is not repeating, but the 4 and the 9 are. So again, you could do that with these last two if you want to practice those and see how those go. But you should be able to build a repeating decimal based on your knowledge of nines. All right, we're going to pause here. I'm trying to think if we're going to move on to the next one. I think I'll stop there for now on this video, and then I'll post another one. So keep working hard.